right, so we're diving into The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins.
Okay.
I'm curious what sparked your interest in this particular book.
What?
Are you looking for a new approach to relationships or maybe just hoping to find a little more peace in your life?
Yeah.
Whatever your reason, you've definitely picked an intriguing read. Mel Robbins isn't afraid to tackle some tough topics, and she does it with this really relatable, down-to-earth style.
You're right. She's got a knack for weaving in personal stories
Yeah.
and even some humor
Oh, for sure.
alongside evidence-based advice
Yeah.
for someone who's known for her 5-second rule, which is all about taking action.
Right.
This book is a fascinating exploration of something a bit more internal, understanding how our need to control others actually impacts our own well-being.
Okay, I'm already hooked.
Yeah.
So for those who haven't read The Let Them Theory yet,
Yeah.
can you give us the quick rundown? What's the central idea here?
At its core, the let them theory is about recognizing that we waste an incredible amount of time and energy trying to control things that are ultimately outside of our control.
Okay.
Other people's opinions, actions, even their feelings.
Right.
The book uses this powerful analogy of a seesaw
Okay.
to illustrate the dynamic.
Yeah, I like that.
Every time we obsess over what someone else is doing or thinking, we're essentially putting all our weight on their side of the seesaw.
Okay.
And guess what? We end up sinking emotionally.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's so simple, but it really paints a clear picture of how we give away our power in those situations.
Right.
But if letting go of control is one side of the seesaw,
Yeah.
what's the counterbalance? How do we regain that power?
That's where the let me part of the equation comes in.
Oh, yeah.
Once you stop putting all your energy into controlling others, you free yourself up to focus on what you can control.
Right.
Your own choices, your responses, your actions.
Okay.
It's about shifting from reaction
Right.
to proactivity. Asking yourself, okay, this situation is what it is, but what do I want to do about it?
It's almost like hitting the reset button. Instead of getting tangled up in someone else's drama, you're choosing to step back and say, this isn't my circus. These aren't my monkeys.
Yeah. It's
But
good.
isn't that easier said than done? I mean, we're wired for connection, for wanting to influence the people in our lives.
Right.
How do we actually make that shift from let them to let me?
Well, one of the first steps is recognizing where you're getting stuck on that seesaw.
Okay.
Mel Robbins gives a bunch of relatable examples in the book. Like, think about that time you spent hours agonizing over what to post on social media, worrying about what people would think.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe it's that ongoing frustration with a partner's habit that you've tried to nag them out of 100 times.
For sure.
Those are classic examples of us putting all our weight on the other side of the seesaw.
Okay, I see what you mean. And the book encourages us to ask ourselves, what do I really want? But sometimes I think we're so caught up in the back and forth with another person that we lose sight of our own needs. How do we even begin to unpack that question?
It's a process, for sure.
Right.
But the book argues that simply recognizing the pattern is a huge first step.
Okay.
Then it's about starting to detach from the outcome. You can't force someone to like your social media post, and you can't make your partner change their habits.
Okay.
But you can choose how you respond to those situations.
So I'm hearing a lot about awareness, acceptance, and then action.
Yeah.
Recognizing the pattern, accepting that you can't control the other person,
Right.
and then focusing on what you can do.
Exactly.
It sounds pretty empowering, actually.
Yeah.
But let's get real for a second.
Go.
Sometimes the people we're dealing with aren't just passively disagreeing with us or mildly annoying us. Sometimes it feels like we're dealing with full-blown adult tantrums.
Oh, absolutely. We've all encountered those people who seem to be stuck in a perpetual state of emotional adolescence. The silent treatment, the guilt trips, the passive-aggressive jabs. It's exhausting.
For sure.
And it's easy to get sucked into that vortex of reactivity.
It feels like a personal attack and you want to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Or you feel this urge to try and reason with them, which never works.
Right.
So how does the let them theory apply when you're dealing with someone who's acting like a toddler in a grown-up's body?
That's where understanding the neuroscience behind our emotional reactions can be really helpful.
Okay.
Mel Robbins cites some fascinating research from Dr. Aditi Nekaratkar, who explains that our emotions are basically these bursts of chemicals in our brains. They're intense, but they're fleeting.
Okay.
Most of them subside within about 90 seconds.
Wait, so you're telling me that those moments when I feel like I'm going to explode with frustration or anger,
Yeah.
those are just temporary chemical reactions?
Exactly. The problem is that we often react impulsively to those chemical bursts instead of letting them pass.
Right.
We get hooked on the story we're telling ourselves about the situation. And that just amplifies the emotional intensity.
So in a sense, we're giving those 90-second bursts way more power than they deserve.
Right.
We're letting them hijack our entire day, our entire mood.
Exactly.
But how do we actually break that cycle?
Well, that's where let them comes in.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that the other person's behavior is about them, not about you.
Okay.
It's about choosing not to engage in their drama,
Right.
to detach from the need to fix it or control it.
So instead of getting sucked into that tug of war of emotions, we're choosing to drop the rope.
Precisely. And here's the thing. Letting go doesn't mean you're condoning your behavior.
Right.
It simply means you're choosing not to let it control you.
Okay.
You're choosing to protect your own peace of mind.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's say you're dealing with someone who's constantly giving you the silent treatment.
Yeah.
How do you even let them in that situation? I mean, it's not like you can just ignore it completely, can you?
Well, ignoring it might be part of it, actually.
Yep.
Remember, you can't control their silence, but you can control how you react to it.
Mm-hmm.
You can choose to see it as their way of processing their emotions, even if it's a dysfunctional way.
Right.
You can choose to focus on your own well-being instead of getting caught up in their emotional game.
So it's about setting boundaries, both internally and externally.
Yeah.
Internally, it's about choosing not to take their behavior personally.
Right.
Externally, it might be about saying something like, hey, I notice you're not talking to me. When you're ready to communicate, I'm here.
Right.
And then you actually disengage.
Right.
You go about your day. You focus on things that bring you joy.
Mm-hmm.
You let them have their tantrum while you let yourself have a peaceful day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the most powerful thing you can do.
Yeah.
It takes away their power to control your emotions.
Right.
It allows you to step out of that dynamic and focus on what you can control. Your own choices, your own responses, your own well-being.
I love that. It's like turning the tables on the whole situation.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, sometimes letting them feels like letting ourselves down.
Right.
Like, aren't we supposed to stand up for ourselves, fight for what we believe in?
Yeah.
Where's the line between healthy detachment and just rolling over and letting people walk all over us?
That's such a great question.
Yeah.
And it's one that Mel Robbins addresses directly in the book.
Okay.
She emphasizes that let them isn't about being passive or letting people take advantage of you.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that true power comes from focusing on what you can control.
Right.
And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away from a situation that's draining your energy
Mm-hmm.
and preventing you from living your best life.
So it's not about being a doormat. It's about being strategic with your energy.
Right.
Choosing your battles wisely and sometimes choosing not to battle at all.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this let them philosophy could really shift things in my life.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling there's a lot more to unpack here.
Oh, definitely. We've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore in terms of how this applies to different types of relationships,
Yeah.
from romantic partners to family members to even our own internal struggles.
All right, let's dive in.
Okay.
All right, so we talked about how let them can help us navigate those tricky power dynamics in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But what about something like comparison?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a huge struggle for a lot of people,
Right.
especially in this age of social media where everyone's showcasing their highlight reel.
Absolutely. And Mel Robbins doesn't shy away from this topic in the book.
Okay.
She even admits to struggling with comparison herself.
Yeah.
She tells this great story about how she was feeling envious of a friend who was doing this amazing renovation on her house.
Oh, wow.
And initially she tried to brush it off,
Mm-hmm.
but the more she saw pictures of her friend's progress, the more that envy started to eat away at her.
Oh, man. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
It's like that feeling of, wait, why don't I have that amazing kitchen
Yeah.
or that perfect walk-in closet?
Right.
It's so easy to get sucked into that spiral of feeling like you're not enough.
Right. And that's where the let them theory offers a really interesting perspective.
Okay.
It's not about denying those feelings of envy or comparison. It's about using them as a guide.
Okay.
In Mel's case, she realized that her envy wasn't really about the house itself.
Right.
It was about the fact that she didn't have a dedicated space
Mm-hmm.
for her own creative work.
Oh, okay.
Her friend's renovation was just a mirror,
Yeah.
reflecting a desire that she hadn't fully acknowledged within herself.
That's a really interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
So instead of letting comparison make you feel bitter or resentful.
Right.
You're actually using it as a tool for self-discovery.
Exactly. It's like, okay, I'm feeling envious of this person, but what is it specifically that I'm yearning for?
Yeah.
What need is this highlighting within me? Once you identify that need, you can start to shift your focus from let them have that thing to let me create my own version of it.
So in Mel's case, she took that envy and channeled it into creating her own dream studio space.
Right.
She didn't try to replicate what her friend had. She created something that was uniquely her own.
Right. And that's a key point here. It's not about trying to keep up with the Joneses or replicate someone else's success.
Okay.
It's about using comparison as a catalyst to define your own goals.
Right.
And create a life that's aligned with your values.
I love that. It's almost like turning comparison into a game of inspiration
Yeah.
rather than a game of self-doubt.
Right.
But I think one of the trickiest things about comparison is that it often pops up in the context of friendships.
Yeah.
And as we get older,
Right.
friendships can become way more complicated than they were back in our school days.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
We move or to shift our energy changes.
Yeah.
And sometimes those friendships that felt so solid in our 20s start to feel strained or distant.
Right.
It's a natural part of life, but it can be really painful to navigate.
Absolutely. I remember when I first moved to a new city after college, was so excited to build a whole new circle of friends.
Yeah.
But I quickly realized that adult friendships are a different beast altogether.
Right.
It's not as simple as showing up to class and bonding over homework assignments.
The book actually breaks down the 3 key pillars of friendship:
Okay.
proximity, timing, and energy.
Okay.
Proximity is the most obvious one.
Right.
Physical closeness matters, and it's a lot harder to maintain friendships when people are scattered across different cities or even different time zones.
Right. And then there's timing.
Yeah.
Our life stages have a huge impact on what we're looking for in friendships.
Right.
The friends who were perfect companions for late-night study sessions and bar hopping
Yeah.
might not be the same friends who are going to support you through marriage, kids, and career changes.
Exactly. And then there's energy.
Okay.
As we evolve and grow, our energy changes. Right?
Right.
The things that used to energize us might start to drain us, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And sometimes those shifts in energy
Yeah.
can make certain friendships feel less compatible.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I've definitely had friendships that felt really vibrant and supportive at one point in my life. But then something shifted.
Right.
It wasn't that anything dramatic happened.
Yeah.
It's just that our energies were no longer in sync.
And that's where let them can be so powerful, even in the context of friendships.
Okay.
It's about accepting that not all friendships are meant to last forever.
Right.
It's about recognizing that people change and that sometimes those changes lead us down different paths.
So it's about letting go with grace, both for yourself and for the other person.
Right.
But I think one of the toughest things about friendships ending is that feeling of rejection.
Yeah.
Like, what if it's not just a natural drifting apart? What if it's more about one person choosing to distance themselves from the other?
Well, that's where the let me part of the equation becomes really important.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that you can't control how other people feel about you.
Right.
Or how they choose to interact with you.
Okay.
But you can control how you choose to respond to those situations.
Okay.
You can choose to see it as a reflection of their own journey, their own needs, and their own limitations.
So instead of getting caught up in the why,
Right.
you're focusing on the what now.
Exactly.
What can I do to take care of myself and move forward in a healthy way?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that might involve grieving the loss of the friendship. It might involve having some honest conversations to try and gain clarity or closure.
Right.
Or it might simply involve accepting the situation.
Yeah.
And choosing to focus your energy on cultivating friendships
Okay.
that feel more aligned with who you are now.
That makes sense. But what about making new friends as adults? I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah, it can definitely feel more challenging as we get older. But the book offers some really practical advice for making new connections.
Okay, good.
One of the key takeaways is to be patient.
Mm-hmm.
Building genuine friendships takes time.
Okay.
Mel Robbins actually suggests giving it a year.
A year? That seems like a really long time.
It might sound like a lot,
Yeah.
but it's about shifting your perspective.
Okay.
Instead of putting pressure on yourself to instantly click with someone,
Right.
you're allowing space for that connection to develop organically.
So it's about releasing the expectation of instant gratification and embracing the slow burn of authentic connection.
Exactly. And another important piece of advice is to go first.
Okay.
Don't wait for someone else to invite you to something
Mm,
or reach out to you.
yeah.
Be the one to initiate conversations, suggest activities, send that text message.
I can see how that would be scary for some people.
Right.
But putting yourself out there like that can feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
But I guess that's part of the let me challenge, isn't it?
It is.
Stepping outside of your comfort zone and embracing the possibility of rejection.
Right. And here's the thing. Even if someone doesn't reciprocate your invitation
Mm-hmm.
or your enthusiasm,
Yeah.
it's not a reflection of your worth.
Okay.
It's simply a mismatch of energy or timing.
So you're saying that even rejection can be a valuable learning experience.
Yeah.
It helps us refine our understanding of what we're looking for in friendships
Right.
and where our energy is best spent.
Absolutely. And remember, even those casual connections, the barista who knows your coffee order, the people you chat with at the gym,
Yeah.
those interactions all contribute to building a sense of community.
It's like creating a social scaffolding.
Right.
Those small moments of connection build upon each other,
Yeah.
creating a stronger foundation for deeper relationships to form.
Exactly. It's about being open to those little moments of human interaction,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that even a brief conversation with a stranger
Right.
can brighten your day
Yeah.
and contribute to a greater sense of belonging.
Okay. I'm feeling inspired to get out there and put myself out there a bit more.
Good.
But before we move on, I want to circle back to something you said earlier about energy.
Okay.
You mentioned that sometimes friendships fade because our energy changes.
Right.
Can you talk a bit more about that? What does that look like in practice?
Sure. It's not always easy to pinpoint,
Yeah.
but
Maybe
sometimes
so.
you just sense a shift in the dynamic of a friendship.
Okay.
Maybe you used to feel energized and uplifted after spending time with someone.
Yeah.
But now you feel drained or depleted.
Right.
Or maybe you find yourself avoiding their calls or making excuses not to see them.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that.
Yeah.
It's almost like you can feel the energy of the friendship
Yeah.
becoming heavier,
You-
more stagnant.
Exactly. And sometimes those energy shifts are just a natural part of growth and change.
Okay.
Maybe one person is going through a particularly challenging time,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe their priorities have shifted in a way that makes it difficult to maintain the same level of connection.
Mm-hmm. So how do you know if it's worth trying to salvage the friendship or if it's time to let it go?
That's a tough question, and there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
But I think one of the key things is to tune into your own intuition.
Okay.
How do you feel when you're around this person?
Right.
Do you feel supported and energized, or do you feel drained and depleted?
That's a good point. I think sometimes we try to logic our way through these decisions,
Yeah.
but our bodies often give us clues long before our minds catch up. So if you're feeling that sense of heaviness or avoidance, that's a sign to pay attention to.
Right. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for both yourself and the other person is to create some distance.
Okay.
That might mean having an honest conversation about what's going on.
Yeah.
Or it might simply mean letting the friendship naturally fade as you both move on to different chapters in your lives.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's talk about a different kind of relationship challenge.
Okay.
Dealing with loved ones who are struggling.
Right.
I'm talking about addiction, mental health issues.
Yeah.
Even just consistently making poor choices.
Yeah.
It's so heartbreaking to watch someone you care about going through something like that.
Mm.
And it's natural to want to jump in and try to fix it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But as you might have guessed,
Yeah.
the let them theory offers a slightly different perspective on this.
Okay.
It's not about being indifferent or detaching from the people we love.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we can't force anyone to change,
Mm-hmm.
and that sometimes trying to rescue someone
Yeah.
actually prevents them from doing the work they need to do to heal themselves.
So it's about tough love.
Oh.
Letting them hit rock bottom so they can finally see the need for change.
It can be a part of it,
Okay.
but it's not quite that simple.
Right.
Remember, it's not about being punitive or abandoning them.
Okay.
It's about setting healthy boundaries
Right.
and recognizing that their choices are ultimately their own.
But that's so hard.
It is.
How do you balance that need to support them with the understanding that you can't control their actions?
It's a delicate balance for sure.
Yeah.
But the book highlights some key principles that can help.
Oh.
First, it's important to remember that change only happens when the person is ready to change.
Okay.
No amount of nagging, pleading, or rescuing
Right.
is going to make a difference if they're not internally motivated to do the work.
So what can you do?
Yeah.
Do you just stand by and watch them self-destruct?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It's about finding a way to support them without enabling their harmful behaviors.
Okay.
The book actually references some fascinating research
Okay.
from Dr. Robert Waldinger, who leads the Harvard study of adult development.
Mm-hmm.
He emphasizes that sometimes allowing people to experience the natural consequences of their actions is the most loving thing you can do.
So it's about letting them feel the weight of their choices so they can eventually realize that something needs to change.
Exactly. Of
Yeah.
course, this has to be done within safe boundaries.
Right.
We're not talking about letting someone endanger themselves or others, but sometimes allowing them to experience the discomfort of their choices
Mm-hmm.
is the catalyst they need to start making different decisions.
That makes sense. It's like that saying, you can't heal someone who doesn't want to be healed.
Right.
But how do you actually put this into practice? What does it look like to let them when you're dealing with a loved one who's struggling?
Well, it starts with setting clear boundaries.
Okay.
What are you willing to tolerate and what are you not?
Right.
What kind of support are you willing to offer and what are your limits?
So it's about being honest with yourself about what you can and cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
It's about recognizing that your well-being is important too.
Exactly. And it's also about being clear with your loved one about your boundaries.
Okay.
It's about saying something like, I love you and I want to support you, but I'm not going to enable your behavior.
Right.
I'm not going to lie, cover for you, or rescue you from the consequences of your choices.
Wow, that's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
But I can see how it would be necessary in some cases. It's about drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is where my love ends and your responsibility begins.
Right. And it's not easy. It might involve some difficult conversations, and it might even mean temporarily distancing yourself from the relationship if it's becoming too toxic.
So it's about prioritizing your own well-being while still holding space for their potential growth.
Exactly.
It's about recognizing that you can love someone without condoning their behavior.
Right. And remember, even in the midst of all of this, the let me principle still applies.
Okay.
It's about taking care of yourself, setting boundaries, and focusing on your own healing and growth. You can't pour from an empty cup, so make sure you're taking care of your own needs as well.
Okay. Okay, I think we need to lighten the mood a bit.
Yeah.
Because all this talk about boundaries and letting go can feel pretty intense.
It can.
But here's the thing that keeps coming up for me.
Yeah.
The let them theory ultimately leads you back to yourself. It's like this journey of self-discovery where you're learning to detach from the need to control everything and everyone around you so you can finally focus on your own growth and well-being.
You're absolutely right. It's like that saying,
Yeah.
you can't control the waves, but you can learn to surf.
Oh, I like that.
And in this case, the let me part of the equation is all about becoming a more skilled surfer, navigating the ups and downs of life with more grace and resilience.
So how does this whole philosophy apply to something like finding love?
Okay.
I mean, dating can be a minefield of expectations and securities and those pesky attachment issues we all seem to carry around.
Well, Mel Robbins has some pretty strong opinions on this,
Okay.
and I think some of her advice might surprise you.
Okay.
She's a big advocate for embracing your authentic self right from the start.
Okay.
No more trying to mold yourself into what you think someone else wants.
Wait, so you're saying ditch the dating persona and just be yourself? But what if your true self is a little quirky or messy or, not perfectly polished?
That's exactly the point. Trying to present a curated version of yourself is exhausting.
Right.
And it inevitably leads to disappointment.
Yeah.
If someone's not into the real you, flaws and all that, then they're not the right person for you.
That makes sense. But how do you actually put that into practice? I mean, first dates can be nerve-wracking enough without adding the pressure of being completely vulnerable.
It's not about spilling your deepest secrets on the first date.
Okay.
It's about being genuine in your interactions, not trying to force a connection or pretend to be someone you're not.
Right.
Mel Robbins also talks about the importance of not chasing after someone.
Oh, okay.
If they're truly interested, they'll make an effort.
Okay, I'm really liking this. No more decoding cryptic text messages or overanalyzing every interaction. If someone's into you, you'll know it. No games, no drama.
Right. And here's another gem from Mel Robbins. She reminds us that we're not looking for a partner to complete us.
Right.
We're already whole. We're choosing someone to share our awesomeness with.
I love that. It's about shifting from a place of lack to a place of abundance. You're not desperately searching for someone to fill a void. Yeah. You're inviting someone to join you on this amazing journey called life.
Exactly. And when you approach dating from that perspective, it takes a lot of the pressure off.
Right.
You're not settling for someone who's good enough because you're afraid of being alone.
Yeah.
You're choosing someone who adds value to your life, someone who celebrates your quirks and challenges you to grow.
So how does this whole let them philosophy apply when you're already in a relationship
Okay.
and things are getting a little rocky? I mean, every couple goes through ups and downs.
Right.
But how do you know when it's a bump in the road versus a sign that it's time to head for the exit?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
And I think there's a tendency to overcomplicate things when it comes to
Yeah.
relationships. We read all these self-help books.
Yeah.
We analyze every fight. We try to decode every subtle shift in behavior.
Right.
But sometimes the simplest approach is the most effective.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the simple approach?
Mel Robbins actually talks about the 69% rule in the book, and it's a bit of a wake-up call.
Okay.
The Gottman Institute,
Mm-hmm.
which has done extensive research on relationships, has found that 69% of relationship problems are basically unresolvable.
Wait, what? So you're saying that almost 70% of the things couples fight about
Yeah.
are just fundamental differences that are never going to change?
That's exactly what the research suggests. It's not about right or wrong.
Okay.
It's about compatibility.
Right.
There are certain personality traits, core values, and ingrained habits
Mm-hmm.
that are pretty much set in stone.
So does that mean we should just give up if things get tough? Throw in the towel if we encounter a difference that feels irreconcilable?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
It's about applying the let them and let me principles in a really discerning way.
Okay.
Let them be who they are,
Right.
except that certain aspects of their personality or behavior are unlikely to change. And then let yourself decide if those unchanging aspects are deal breakers for you.
So it's about honest self-reflection.
Yeah.
Can you live with those things?
Right.
Or are they fundamentally incompatible with your needs and values?
Yeah.
And if it's the latter, then you have to have the courage to walk away,
Yeah.
even if it's painful.
Exactly. And the book offers some really helpful advice for navigating heartbreak.
Okay.
Mel Robbins suggests a 30-day period of no contact
Okay.
to break the emotional cycle and give yourself space to heal.
Right.
She also talks about filling your calendar with things that bring you joy, focusing on personal growth, and reminding yourself that there's more love out there waiting for you.
It's like consciously shifting your focus from what you've lost to what you're gaining.
Sure.
A chance to rediscover yourself, to create a life you love, and to open yourself up to new possibilities.
Precisely.
Right.
And that brings us to the ultimate let me, the one that encompasses all the others, embracing your whole self.
Right.
This is where all the threads of the let them theory come together.
Yeah.
It's about releasing the need for external validation
Oh,
and finally saying, hey, this is me. Take it or leave it.
it's about owning your worth flaws and all of not trying to be perfect, but embracing that beautiful messiness that makes you, well, you.
There's a great analogy in the book
Okay.
that really captures this idea.
Yeah.
Mel Robbins compares us to the sky.
Yeah.
Just like the sky has clouds and storms.
Yeah.
We have imperfections and challenges.
Right.
But those things don't diminish our worth.
Okay.
They're just part of what makes us unique and beautiful.
I love that. It's like finally letting go of that constant pressure to be something you're not
Right.
and stepping into the freedom of being your authentic self.
Yeah,
And you know what? That self-acceptance is contagious.
it is.
It ripples out into your relationships, creating space for others to be themselves too.
Exactly. It creates an atmosphere of acceptance and authenticity.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we're all works in progress,
Yeah.
each with our own unique strengths and weaknesses.
So if I'm hearing you correctly,
Yeah.
the let them theory is ultimately about empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
It's about taking back control of your own happiness by letting go of the things you can't control
Right.
and focusing on the things you can.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that true power comes from within, from aligning your actions with your values,
Yeah.
and from choosing to show up in the world as your authentic self.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty inspired.
Okay.
And I hope our listener is feeling the same way. So what's one takeaway you'd like to leave our listener with?
If you're struggling with a particular relationship,
Mhm.
or just feeling stuck in general, I encourage you to ask yourself, where am I trying to control the uncontrollable?
Right.
And what would it look like to truly let them in this situation?
Yeah.
And even more importantly, what would it mean for me to let myself pursue my own dreams, set my own boundaries, and create a life that feels authentic and fulfilling?
Those are powerful questions. And I think the answers might surprise you. So to our listener, go experiment, have fun with it, and see how this simple shift in perspective can transform your relationships, starting with the one you have with yourself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Let Them theory. Until next time, keep diving.
Thank you for joining us at Wisdom House, where we bring you timeless insights from the greatest books. If you found this deep dive valuable, Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Wisdom House. Stay curious, stay inspired, and we'll see you in the next video.